Seriously, this is a serious problem for Democrats. Less than 1 in 4 Democrats under 30 say they're proud to be an American. 54% say they're embarrassed by it. Embarrassed? Like America's your mom picking you up at school? You're embarrassed to be an American? Well, guess what? The feeling's mutual, because you have no perspective. Is America perfect? No, of course not. No country is. Although don't get Tucker Carlson started on Russia. Globalize the intifada is the catchphrase that's really catching on these days, as if worldwide suicide bombing and cosplaying Islamic revolutionaries is the answer to our problems. At an AOC Bernie Sanders rally in Idaho last month, someone threw a Palestinian flag over an American flag, and the crowd erupted in approval. What should have happened after that is one of the adults on stage should have told their young, loyal followers, this is not a symbol of freedom. This is.
Good morning. Rise and freedom. I'm Austin Petersen. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. Today is Monday, the 15th of September, 7:07 a.m. Central Time. If you guys are having some kind of technical issues, it might not be your fault. Just a little technical glitch that I was having behind the scenes today made it so that it like duplicated the stream. So some people are just now finding it. So hopefully you can help all of our friends find their way in. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link in the Discord server so that if anybody's having any problems, they can find it right there. The stream opened up. Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah. People in the chat like, oh, is there a show today? Yes. Thankfully, we have a Discord, which you should join. It's a great community. Good morning, Cat Dad. Dad Bod. Quest fan. A lot of dads in here. This is a very dad-friendly show. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. Hope you guys are all doing well today. We're glad to have you here with us on the Wake Up America show. Don't forget to click like if today is your first time watching the show. We'd love to have you be a regular guest. So if you click follow, you will be notified whenever we go live. Left is lighting for candles for Karl Marx, while the right is lighting candles for Charlie Kirk. Can't even have vigils in peace. Leftists stomping on flowers and candles at vigils across the country. Look at this. You have a young man. He goes up. He's been stomping on the flowers. There he is. He's grabbed by the cops. Now, here's the thing. If you still had some illusions that the left wasn't entirely evil, take a look at the shirt that this kid who was stomping on the flowers at the vigil is wearing. When they get the cuffs on him, and there they go to turn him around, I want you to see what this kid's wearing. They're about to turn him around. There he is. Anybody notice something about that shirt? Yeah. No, if you've been following this case really closely, then yeah, you're going to understand. Where is that kid's parents? What is wrong with them? That's the exact same shirt that the murderer of Charlie Kirk was wearing. Here he is. He's having to be physically, violently removed from the flowers that he's stomping on that people are having at vigils across the country. An entirely evil phenomenon, the American left. But there's hope. The rest of us are watching. Pilots, teachers, professors, and even Secret Service agents are lighting their careers on fire with disgusting posts about Charlie Kirk's assassination. They thought they were being clever. They thought that they were untouchable. This is the first time that they've ever had to face consequences because they thought that they dominated the culture. But now many on the left are learning the hard way what happens when not cancel culture, but consequence culture comes knocking. Our headline story, and it's not just a headline, folks. This is a dividing line for the future of this country. Pilots, teachers, professors, staffers, even a Secret Service employee losing their jobs because of what they posted about Charlie Kirk's assassination. So it's not cancel culture. This is consequences culture. For years, the left used cancel culture to try to silence conservatives. This is people who are peacefully running a Christian bakery and who are being canceled and sued out of existence because they don't want to bake the gay wedding cake. That's cancel culture, right? Which I'm opposed to. Consequence culture is different. The left has used cancel culture against people having peaceful opinions. Now consequence culture has come for them. Blacklisting, naming and shaming, and the sword now cuts both ways. If you cheer a political assassination, you post karma is a bitch when a man is shot in the neck for speaking his mind, then you don't get to fly planes. You don't get to teach kids. You don't get to wear a badge or represent a football team. How's that? What are your thoughts? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. You can share us your thoughts at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. I love getting the feedback in real time, guys. You said the mic was a little low, so I just turned it up. Is that better? So, free speech. It's a conversation about free speech. Let's get something straight. The First Amendment is about the government stopping you from speaking. It does not mean that you get to keep your cushy job for glorifying murder. And that is not censorship. That is accountability. That's consequences. And it's also justice for Charlie Kirk. We didn't start cancel culture, but we are going to end it. And the way that we're going to end it is not by being weak. I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine. I won't say who it is. We were vehemently disagreeing about this. He was very much against it. I imagine that we'll have sort of an analog of that conversation when Jon Miltimore joins us on the show today at 8 a.m. Central Time. Imagine he's going to oppose all of this consequence culture that's going on right now. But then we'll have Will Chamberlain at 8:30, who is very much in favor of the consequence culture. So it'll be interesting. We should have both sides of this debate on the show this morning. That's why you watch the Wake Up America show, because you're going to get more perspectives than just one. So this is going to be a great show for you guys today. So make sure that you stick around the whole time. All right, and we talk about, I mean, this is part of a bigger discussion. I think a psychosocial phenomenon that's going on, but there are people who don't seem to understand that we are in a war, whether we like it or not. Whether you want to believe that people have declared war against you and your way of life, it's true whether you agree with it or not.
Oh man, did you guys see that activist in America, Charlie Kirk? He got shot. Did you see that? That guy loves gun violence and he got shot. Did you see that? Oh man, Charlie Kirk. You know, to the Charlie Kirk family. Did you see all that blood that came out of his body? It was like, whoa. To every Zionist, every Christian Zionist, may you be just like that shop, the Target. All his followers, just like the shop, the Target. I'm not saying that violence isn't the way, so don't misconstrue my words, okay? Did you see all that blood? That dude's dead. There is a fucking God.
I'm prone to disagree. Pretty much everything you said. Quite a juxtaposition. This is what evil looks like. This is why you should carry. These people are a threat, not just to our way of life. They are a threat to our very lives, to our liberty, and to our property. And it's one that I'm not going to back down from. I'm going to fight. Both sides sometimes do it. Both sides. Bullshit. Bullshit. It's not both sides. Bullshit. Bullets fly one way. You don't see this after leftists get killed. Two Minneapolis senators got shot. Nobody cares. Nobody knows who they are. I didn't even know the story. I read the news every day. Don't shoot Democratic senators. How's that? I'm not going to find glee in their death. I don't. Right? The bullets are flying all in one direction. We're going to talk about how we're going to enforce our rights against these evil creatures. That's segment 1 today. In segment 2, then we're going to dig into the motive, right? Because the suspect wasn't just some random kid, right? Tyler Robinson, the alleged assassin, he was tied into the online furry culture, okay? Don't get mad at us, Kermode. I know you just like animals, but today we're gonna have fun at the furry's expense today. We're gonna make fun of the furry's expense. So Tyler Robinson was tied into online furry culture. He had a transgender partner who posted Biden support memes and joked about being mentally ill. Investigators are now probing whether pro-trans and far-left groups in Utah had prior knowledge of the plot. So there may actually be a conspiracy in this case. You can't make this up. The casing of the murder weapon was engraved with a furry meme, and that is the kind of deranged, internet-poisoned leftist radicalization that we are dealing with this morning. Thank you to Robbie Theriman for the purchase of the subs, brother. I'll set up the bonus content in just a moment. At 8 a.m. this morning, we're going to have Jon Miltimore from the American Institute of Economic Research. He joins the show to talk about cancel culture, consequences culture, and what this means for our society. Then at 8:30 a.m. Central Time, we're bringing in Will Chamberlain, Senior Counsel at the Article 3 Project and the VP of External Affairs of the Emmett Burke Foundation. He's also one of the organizers of the National Conservatism Conferences. And despite our differences of opinions on things like that, Will and I have maintained a cordial relationship, acquaintanceship over the years, and I value his feedback. And so I'm looking forward to having him on the show today at 8:30 a.m. Speaking of furries, Kermode Bear in the chat says the furry community was quickly infiltrated by hardcore leftists in the early 2000s. It is a well-known problem. Good morning to St. Louis SeaWorld Girl. Welcome to the chat. Okay, so speaking of furry culture, we've got the bonus content locked and loaded today. It's $75 in Rumble Rants or in shop purchases today. We unlocked today's 5-minute mini documentary if we had $75. And if you want to go full blast, breakfast theater, it comes alive. Today's sketch is, you're going to meet a trans furry who tells us how Reddit and Tumblr radicalized them, complete with all of the discussion of how they became a furry leftist. It's going to be edgy, satirical, and it's going to be unforgettable. So buckle up. This is not another Monday morning. This is the fight for the soul of liberty in this country. You're on the front lines with us right here on Wake Up America. So again, real quick, we have raised already, thanks to Robbie, $25 out of the $75 to $100 bonus goals. So if we hit $75 raised on the show today, then you guys will get to see our bonus content, and the bonus content today at $100 level is a trans furry who will be on the show today. So if you want to see, maybe you don't want to see, you'll pay $100 not to see the trans furry. Either way, just let us know. So that is how our bonus content program works. But just an FYI, people all weekend were hitting me up. This is kind of a side note. They were hitting me up asking for Charlie Kirk products in the shop. And at first, Stephanie and I were talking about it, and we were kind of like, is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? And we actually decided that, we would do it. We would create some things because people have had special requests. And the things that we've made are all things that people have specifically requested from us. So we have in the shop some items that are Charlie Kirk related. The shirt that he was wearing when he passed away, the Freedom shirt. We also have that on a flag. And we also have, somebody wanted an image of Charlie Kirk looking like the infamous iconic photo of Che Guevara as a way to kind of like thumb their nose to the left. So we have that as well. And then there's another Charlie Kirk. You can see all the latest products when you go to the Liberty shop at the very top. All of the latest products are at the very top. You just click on that picture of me and it will take you to it. Quest Fanning, thank you for that. Quest Fanning says, thanks for again the community you created here, Austin. The girls and I are in Boston for a long weekend. It was a joy to meet up with Luke Sacker and Justin yesterday. Yeah, you lucky son of a gun. Luke Sacker, big supporter of ours as well. And Kermode Bear says, roast the furries so I can repost it and piss off my ex-followers. Thank you, guys. Yes, we will have a trans furry on the show today.
Well, some outlets are reporting that the suspect lived with a transgender partner. Is that accurate? And are investigators looking at this part of his life as a possible motivation?
Yes, definitely. And yes, I can confirm that. I know that has been reported and that the FBI has confirmed that as well, that the roommate was a romantic partner, a male transitioning to female. I can say that he has been very cooperative. This partner has been incredibly cooperative, had no idea that this was happening, and is working with investigators right now.
Well,
there you go. So confirmed. Womp womp. More like bum 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 bum. All right, so you've seen the headlines, right? You've seen the firings that have been going on this weekend. I imagine you've guys seen the news. Thank you guys for all the rants. I'm keeping track of them as they come in. So you've seen all of the outrage of people who have been getting fired, losing their jobs. Pilots, professors, teachers, thank goodness, firefighters, even a Secret Service agent. All of them facing consequences because they decided that when Charlie Kirk was gunned down on stage, the best use of their freedom of expression was to gloat or to cheer or to dance on his grave.
What the fuck are you supposed to do when you get fired? You just take it?
Yeah.
You just take it like a man?
Dude.
I'm unemployed. What am I supposed to do now? Do I go home and goon? Like, guys, what do I do? Like, actually, like, what do you do when you get fired? What's the next step? Do you look for, obviously you look for a job, but like, I got no income now. I spent my last $300 on a parking ticket. That was on me. I did let it sit a little bit. It was like a $30 parking ticket. It went up to $300. I really don't want to talk about it, but what am I supposed to do, guys? Oh my God. This, you know when they say like once you get to a point in adulthood where it's not enjoyable. I don't know who said adulthood was enjoyable. I'm just kind of, but like, what am my gas? I haven't got enough for gas, guys. Oh my God, what am I? Is this what I can't do this? I'm supposed to do this for the rest of my life? Like I can't. What am I supposed to do, guys? Please.
First of all, get that ring out of your goddamn nose. How's that? You pizza chip. If you don't have enough for gas and you don't have a job, why are you driving? Great question. Maybe she's driving home from her job because she just lost the job. Afuera. Yeah. Now, the media wants to frame this as a free speech issue. I hear a lot of people saying, oh, it's a free speech issue. Well, here, Jon Miltimore, he'll probably mention free speech today. NPR says 33 people are under investigation or out of a job. Reuters says at least 15. And every liberal think tank and leftists out there want to wring their hands and they want to cry censorship. The crystal ball is out there saying that the policing of everyone's thoughts and emotions around Charlie Kirk's death is wild. Cancel culture on steroids, backed by the full force of the government. Need I remind you, this was her before.
It's like, you know, I don't know how many of you guys watched the Jubilee episode with Mehdi, where you see these guys who come out and just be like, yeah, I'm a fascist. Dude who got ultimately fired from his job. Good. Dude who got ultimately fired from his job. Good. Dude who got ultimately fired from his job. Good.
I mean, we need to bring back shame. We need to bring back shame. We need to bring back bullying. We need to bring back ass whoopings. We need to bring back ass whoopings. We need to bring back ass whoopings.
There it is.
We need to bring back, when somebody crosses a bright red line society, they need to fucking know that they crossed that bright red line society. So when this motherfucker got fired, the answer is fuck yeah. So when this motherfucker got fired, the answer is fuck yeah. So when this motherfucker got fired, the answer is fuck yeah. So when this motherfucker got
Okay, sorry for all the language. I apologize.
Get fucked. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Why are they so disgusting? They're just low class, disgusting people. They honestly, it's a beautiful thing to see the consequence culture happening in real time. We are going to have a fantastic show for you today. I can't wait to have Jon Miltimore to have a conversation about that. I can't wait to eat him up, chop him up if he dares disagree with me on this one. It's not cancel culture anymore. It's not cancel, right? The First Amendment prevents the government from silencing you. It does not guarantee you lifetime employment if you use your voice to glorify murder. It's not cancel culture. Cancel culture was when conservatives got fired for quoting the Bible or refusing to bake a cake, for daring to say that there are two genders. That was cancel culture. All right, what we are seeing now is consequences culture. The chickens have come home to roost, and it's the left that built the coop. They made their bed. They're going to lie in it. We're going to make sure that they do. Matthew Dowd, fired from MSNBC for blaming Kirk's rhetoric while he was still bleeding out. A Carolina Panthers staffer fired American Airlines pilots who joked about Charlie Kirk's assassination, grounded and removed from duty. Delta Airlines suspending employees, a Secret Service agent under investigation, an Office Depot employee who refused to print memorial posters. I'm sure many of you saw that video. Gone. Here's how the left raises their kids. Take a listen to these children.
Back. I have the best news ever.
What? Donald Trump died?
Second best news.
The vice president died?
Okay, third best news.
That Elon Musk died?
Okay, no. Nobody died. My best friend's getting married.
Which one is it?
Taylor Swift! Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce got engaged! Back.
They don't even know. They don't even care. Disgusting people. But note that those children said that. I mean, unless they rehearsed that before they did it, which it didn't seem like it did. It seemed like for kids to repeat that, you have to understand they have to hear that kind of stuff a lot. They have to hear those kinds of things. Their parents saying those kinds of things. Why do kids? What's funny is they knew who Donald Trump was. They knew there was a vice president. They understood that, they knew who Elon Musk was, and they knew that they wanted them dead. I mean, this is kind of like the American equivalent of Hamas to an extent. But they didn't know or care about Taylor Swift. That's how brainwashed those kids are. The kids should have been if this was a normal family, the kids should have been excited. Oh, Taylor Swift. Yeah, I know Taylor Swift. I like Taylor Swift. I like Taylor Swift's music, right? Normal kid stuff, right? Oh my God, Taylor Swift's getting married. How cute, how sweet. Instead, the first reaction that the children have is that Donald Trump died. I'm so thankful. I'm so gleeful that they died. These people are American terrorists. Look what they do to their kids. They are terrorists. They are evil. This is justice. These people losing their jobs. It's not cancel culture. It's consequence culture, right? You mock political murder. You don't belong in the cockpit of an airplane. You celebrate assassination. You absolutely don't deserve a classroom. You spit on Charlie's grave. You don't wear the badge of the Secret Service. This is how consequences culture works, as it ought to be. Saint Selma seems to agree. She says, when you work for an employer, you represent that employer. Customers find out that you're doing something that disagrees with the employer's philosophy. It could cost the employer's business. So you lose. Yes, exactly. Now, the question is, what do we do with it? Because conservatives and libertarians for years have bent over backwards saying, oh, well, if the left cancels, we won't cancel. If the left blacklists, we'll take the high road. Folks, the high road is closed. It's been washed out. It was completely destroyed in the rain showers that we're having last night here in Jefferson City right now, where it's 69 degrees Fahrenheit, gusty with some lightning and rain. It's gone. There is no high road. There's no construction. It's never coming back. The only road that is left for people like ourselves is the one that leads to victory or defeat. We are a nation divided, and we have to face reality. Either we live as a conquered people, we, you and I, the people listening to this show live right now, we will either live as a conquered people on our own continent that our ancestors conquered, and we'll live shamed and we'll live silent in our own country, or we will rise up and we will conquer evil where it stands. on our doorstep. The enemy's not at the gates. The enemy is inside the gates, and the enemy is here. We have to face reality. You have to stand up and rise up and conquer evil. This is the choice. No more pretending, right? No more pretending as if we aren't at war. We are at war. No more treat others the way you want to be treated. They don't play by those rules. So we are going to treat them the way that they treat us, and it will be righteous. It will not be merciful, and we will take no prisoners. And isn't it funny, too, when a conservative loses their job for quoting scripture, the left says consequences. But when a liberal loses their job for glorifying political murder, suddenly that's censorship. No. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? Welcome to the world that you created. We didn't start the fire, but we're going to make sure that we burn down everything that you hold dear, every institution that you love. Right? Charlie Kirk's blood cries out for vengeance, not for half measures. And people who cheer the murder should face consequences. That's not just appropriate, that's righteous. It is a sign that America still has standards, that we will not be conquered by evil. So let the media weep, let the protesters think, let them write their think pieces, let the pilots cry into their Bud Light. Actions have consequences. Words have consequences. And today, finally, consequences are real. That's our A1 segment. Woo. All right, so if you guys want to talk about consequences, there's one consequence that you need to avoid: unemployment. If you're looking for a job right now in the Liberty Movement, I got them. I can hire pretty much anybody, sight unseen. Well, maybe you'd have to be seen through a Zoom call. But if you have been looking for a job, maybe you got canceled, but not for saying something, but just they were downsizing at the local plant. I have got jobs. campaignjobsnow.com/apply. Don't just sit on the sidelines in this fight. I can get you a good paying job in the Liberty Movement. You're going to earn it. There will be sweat equity. You will be pounding the pavement, but you will be well paid for it. campaignjobsnow.com/apply. That's campaignjobsnow.com/apply. If you want to get involved in the fight for liberty, if you want to ensure that consequence culture ensures victory for liberty in this country, then visit the website campaignjobsnow.com/apply. That's campaignjobsnow.com/apply.
Have you spoken to anybody about the great Charlie Kirk assassination? It's also like, it's tough not to laugh at this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, he's a lunatic and like awful and kind of deserves it in his own way.
So how does FEMA feel about Charlie Kirk getting shot?
Everybody's kind of laugh. I don't know. The people that are in charge of this place are like dipshits now.
Fox News reported that FEMA has put an official on leave from their department who stated online that Charlie Kirk was a racist, homophobic misogynist. Now,
FEMA. Thank you, James O'Keefe. FEMA. Free speech prevents government censorship, not private accountability. Jobs have standards, and if you say things like that, you definitely shouldn't be working for the federal government. How about this? A moderate position. Let's just abolish FEMA. What do you guys say? How about we... That sucker. So the firings that are happening, the suspensions, these are justice. They're not censorship. Teachers, pilots, and agents don't get to cheer assassination. Do we agree? We've raised $52 now towards the $75 and $100 bonus content goal, guys. Thank you very much. Steelbringer. That's our buddy Joel. Brad looks like he's going to take care of you. Thank you for that, Brad. We appreciate you. America's divided. We either live conquered in our own country or we conquer evil. Justice for Charlie Kirk. Words and actions have consequences. There will be a vigil in Kansas City on Tuesday, just FYI, for those who live here in the Midwest. And I had heard some talk about there being one here in Jefferson City. Somebody let me know if that's still on. I heard that it was like happening last week or like over the weekend for some reason, but I was a little confused. So if anybody knows about the local events, let us know. And if you want to post them, you can. If you guys are members of the Discord channel, that's a great way to stay in touch with everybody in the community. The Discord channels server link. I will go ahead and post it in the Rumble chat, but you should be able to get it from the comments. You should be able to get it from the video description. I believe it is in there at the very bottom. Yeah, it is. I always include the Discord in there. So what is Discord? It's basically like a chat room for people in the For Liberty network. So if you guys want to be a part of the network, and when we're not live, hang out with everybody who's in the show, then make sure you join the Discord. I just dropped the link over there in the chat, and check out our other links in there as well, because those sponsors make the Wake Up America show possible. All right, so we're moving on. Section 2 here. This is about the shooter themselves, the motive that we're dealing with here. So cancel culture, not consequence culture. Here we go. So this is the motive. So what would drive this 22-year-old kid, Tyler Robinson, to walk into Utah Valley University and just shoot Charlie Kirk in the neck during a question and answer session? The media is fumbling around all over the place. For a while, the left was trying to paint this to be a far left groyper. This is a Nick Fuentes person because they assassinated him because he wasn't far right enough. And that narrative was so successful on the left, and they posted so many lies about the shooter, who they were, and their motives, and of course lies go around the world twice before truth has time to get on its shoes, that a majority of people who were polled over the weekend actually believed that the shooter was a far right, Trump supporting MAGA conservative and a fascist supporter of Nick Fuentes, and so there are right now, what I'm seeing from polling is that a majority of people polled think that the shooter was a right-wing groyper who is responsible for the murder, right? Not the weirdo, leftist, Antifa, bulge-chasing, trans furry dating, leftist murderer that he actually was. But this is how the narrative has operated so successfully that the left have been able to convince a slight majority of people that is the ideology of the murderer. Thank you to Quest Fanning. So the media, of course, enforcing that narrative, spreading the lies, spreading the bullshit about the actual views of the shooter. And you could see it when you watch interviews like these. Take a listen to this.
There's some published reports out there that this individual, the roommate, may have been transitioning. Did that correlate with what you saw?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so he was going to have an operation to be to turn into a woman.
Yeah, and I think he was getting ready for that.
Sorry, in what way do you think that?
I remember them talking about a doctor's appointment. It was about 2 weeks ago, I would say.
And they were kissing?
Yeah.
Do you know where did you see them kissing?
So he's talking about, this is not a roommate of them, but this is a neighbor who knew the shooter and his boyfriend / girlfriend, whatever you want to call him. And he's talking about how he saw them holding hands and kissing. The media is interviewing them. And they don't like the answers that they're hearing from him.
Just coming out. I was riding with my bike, so I didn't see the whole thing, but yeah. I saw them.
And when did you hear them talking about a doctor's appointment?
Hear that British accent? You leftist.
About the same time that they came out. So that one time, yeah.
Where were you standing for that?
I was just
you standing for. You could tell by their accents that they're leftist pieces of trash.
Okay. So. And you were able to hear snippets of their conversation?
Yeah. Yep.
But you were sure that they were a couple, but you have only seen them together once?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You were assured that they were a couple, but you only saw them together once? That was the Pramelia Jayapal hating America.
Only seen them together once?
Mm-hmm.
Only seen them together once?
Yeah.
Let me tell you about your country.
Yeah, random guys don't hold hands and definitely don't kiss. So I would have tried to stop him if I knew it was him, like before.
Random guys. Wait, let me hear that again. Random guys don't kiss. We have to explain this to the Indian reporter, the British reporter, and the leftist liberal female reporter.
Yeah. Yep.
But you were sure that they were a couple, but you have only seen them together once?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. yeah, I mean, random guys don't hold hands and definitely don't kiss.
Random guys don't hold hands and they definitely don't kiss. We have to explain that you have to explain that to people. Yeah. Maybe me and my friends, we definitely hold hands and kiss. Me and my guy friends. But we're totally straight. Totally and completely. Joni, she decided that she wanted to help unlock the bonus content today, and she went to the Griff shop at forlibertyshop.com. And she went and unlocked the phase 1 of the bonus content. Thank you guys so much for all your financial generosity. Just an FYI, any of the products in the store that are related to Charlie Kirk, the profits from the sales of those are all going to be donated to Turning Point USA. I mean, it's not like we sell hundreds and thousands of dollars worth of merchandise anyway. So, I mean, we sell, a fair amount of merchandise. But, oh, look at that. Atomize the Intifada tumbler already in the shop. Joel was asking for that like 5 minutes ago, and now he's already got it right there. He wanted the Atomize the Intifada. There it is. Atomize the Intifada. Very funny. That was... Paul came up with that one. That's a good one. But here's the thing. You can see the latest product drops. If you're on the front page and you click Merch for Americans, it says latest product drops. Any of the Charlie Kirk related merchandise there, the profits of those will go to Turning Point USA. And we've sold a few items, so I've already made a donation to Turning Point in Charlie Kirk's name. So if you go to the Liberty Shop to unlock the bonus content, and you decide I want the Viva El Charlie t-shirt, or you want his freedom design on a flag, I'm definitely going to get that one. We also have a Charlie Kirk History's Not Over patriotic pocket tee, and then the t-shirt that he wore, Simply Freedom t-shirt. So if you buy any of those, it will unlock the bonus content, but the profits will be donated to Turning Point USA. So let's get back to the story here. Investigators have confirmed Robinson had a fixation with furry subculture. And, this is not me making fun of him. This is just evidence, right? The spent casing from the gun that killed Charlie was engraved with a furry meme. And the meme was, ooh, what's this? Talking about the bulge. If you don't know what that means, thank your lucky stars, right? But it tells us something very important, that this young man lived in online delusions, right? He was a part of irony culture, meme culture, identity confusion, fantasy. It was, and add to this his partner, Lance Twiggs, a young man who was transitioning to female. He had been posting Joe Biden support memes back in 2022, joking about schizophrenia and mental illness on social media. A family background of conservative Christianity in Utah makes sense, but now radicalized into the very opposite, right? This is the household environment that Robinson was in when he pulled the trigger, right? And it doesn't stop there. So federal investigators are probing whether pro-trans and far-left groups in Utah had prior knowledge of the plot. A group called Armed Queers SLC, Armed Queers Salt Lake City, that's their real name, wiped their social media right after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. The flyers from their events showed rainbow flags and hammer and sickle logos on the flags. They bragged about agitate, educate, organize. Doesn't really sound like a wholesome student club. It actually sounds like the breeding ground of extremism that this shooter was steeped in before they committed a heinous murder. So federal investigators are on the case right now, and they should be investigating this radicalization pipeline, right? They should be investigating how this person, abandoned their faith, abandoned Christianity. They found identity in this fantasy subculture, posts about Biden, a trans relationship, surrounded by leftist rhetoric about resistance and violence. And suddenly you've got a young man engraving memes into a bullet casing and pulling the trigger on a conservative leader. Now, Governor Spencer Cox says that the investigators aren't ready to call a motive just yet, right? He's early. It's early. It's true. But you and I, we're not fools. Okay. When the breadcrumbs all lead to the same rotten loaf, we don't need a 3-year commission report to tell us that smells. And while the governor of Utah, Spencer Cox, has done a very good job for the most part in informing people about what's going on with this one, I do think that he made a mistake in this next interview.
I'm not saying we have to just sing Kumbaya and hold hands. What I'm saying is we actually should disagree. I think Charlie represented that better than anyone. Charlie said some very inflammatory things, and in some corners of the web, that's all people have heard. But he also said some other things about forgiveness. He said some amazing things about when things get dark, putting down our phones, reading scripture, going to church, talking to our neighbors. He said that we have to engage, and that's what I appreciate most about Charlie Kirk. Said if we don't keep talking, that's when the violence starts. Look, there are conflict entrepreneurs out there who benefit from radicalizing us, and I'm not one of those. I don't know that that's particularly helpful, but he is right at this. We need to find out how this happened, and we need to stop it from happening.
Yeah, overall fairly good, but I don't think you need to give the left this idea that that Charlie Kirk was saying anything inflammatory. You don't have to give the left this faux premise, right? And I really don't. I honestly don't. And I think Utah Governor Spencer Cox has overall done a fine job of handling it. I disagree with this concept of Charlie Kirk said inflammatory things. Charlie Kirk did not say inflammatory things. Charlie Kirk was like, he's a schoolboy, right? Christian, talking about his faith and his religion, always peaceful, the most inclusive conservative you could get. As close as you could get to a libertarian as a right-wing Christian Republican conservative can get. Charlie Kirk embodied it. Charlie Kirk embodied, wholesomeness and family and humanity. I'm sorry, Governor, but I just don't find that to be inflammatory. I think if people had seen... If Nick Fuentes had been assassinated outside of his home by some leftist radical, I think it would be wrong and horrible, and people would be calling it out, and the left would be celebrating the same way that they're celebrating Charlie Kirk, which goes to show something about the left. They don't see any difference between Nick Fuentes and Charlie Kirk, or Austin Petersen, or Cliff Maloney, or Jon Miltimore, who will be on this show here in 15 minutes to tell me why I'm wrong about everything, I'm sure. And Will Spencer will be joining us at 8:30. But we're all the same, even though we have a broad variety of opinions. You hear me criticizing national conservatism on this show all the time. Will Spencer is going to be on my show at 8:30 a.m. Central Time, and we're going to talk about things we agree and things where we disagree. Jon Miltimore, he's on my show every Monday. We're going to talk. He and I we disagree on things. Never once have I ever thought that I needed to murder Jon Miltimore. Maybe today, though. Let's see. Just kidding. John and I are friends. We have unlocked the bonus content today thanks to the financial generosity of people in the chat and people going to the Grift Shop. Thank you, Frickety, Robbie Thurman, and Joel Lettimore, and so many others Joni Rankin and many others who've made contributions this morning to help unlock the bonus content, guys. Please do not stop donating.
You think we're at war?
My friend's in a box right now, and it wasn't an accident.
Are we facing a civil war?
Well, there's no question that we're clearly facing asymmetric civil warfare. One of the key aspects of that is political assassinations. That being said, the idea that we're going to a, classic civil war scenario, I hope and I pray that doesn't happen.
You think we're at war?
Jack Posobiec. Yeah, the left can't tell the difference between Charlie Kirk and Nick Fuentes. Thank you, Mongoose87. I completely agree. It's 7:49 a.m. Central Time. We will have bonus content. It's like fresh off the printing press right now, so I'm not sure how many minutes I have. Give me just a moment, guys, while I do some quick math here. Okay. Yes, I believe it's 7 minutes long, and we've got 3 to go. So here's what we're going to do, guys. We're going to go ahead and go to the bonus content so you guys can watch the mini documentary that we've produced you today, because you have unlocked that. I know you guys are going to love it. And then after that, we'll have Jon Miltimore on the show. We might have like 2 minutes of commercials. I'm sorry for that, but the timing of this is going to be a little bit tricky. I think this is a good spot for us to stop. When I say stop, it's not really stopping, because you get to watch the mini documentary that you guys have just unlocked. Thanks for your financial generosity. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for supporting the For Liberty Network. And if you made a purchase of any of our Charlie Kirk merch, then thank you for supporting Turning Point USA, because that's where the profits are going. See you guys in just a minute on the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network.
Inevitably, in the wake of the assassination of Charlie Kirk, some observers looked at the problem of a radicalized young man who drove hundreds of miles to plan and carry out the murder of somebody whose political views he abhorred, and concluded that the problem is the tool used by the assassin. A few of those observers even gloat that Kirk was shot after defending the right to keep and bear arms when he discussed the trade-offs inherent in balancing the benefits and dangers of liberty. Much political discourse was already stupid, but too many people want to make it even stupider. After Kirk's assassination, amidst widespread mourning over his death as well as despicable celebrations of the conservative activist's murder, came a spate of malicious chuckling over the nature of the crime. Charlie Kirk, you see, was shot with a rifle, and he'd once called shooting deaths the price of keeping the Second Amendment. How ironic. Except that's really not what Kirk said. I had a lot of disagreements with Kirk, but this wasn't one. His comment about the Second Amendment and deaths was part of a larger discussion about the dangers inherent in liberty. He emphasized that you can't have the good parts of being free without also suffering the negative consequences. Asked at an April 5, 2023 Turning Point USA event about the Second Amendment, Kirk answered, "The Second Amendment is not about hunting. I love hunting. The Second Amendment is not even about personal defense. That is important. The Second Amendment is there, God forbid, so that you can defend yourself against a tyrannical government. Now, we must also be real. We must be honest with the population. Having an armed citizenry comes with a price, and that is part of liberty. Driving comes with a price. 50,000 people die on the road every year. That's a price. You get rid of driving, you'd have 50,000 less auto fatalities. But we have decided that the benefit of driving, speed, accessibility, mobility, having products, services, is worth the cost of 50,000 people dying on the road. You will never live in a society when you have an armed citizenry and you won't have a single gun death. That is nonsense. It's drivel. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal," he added. Kirk might also have mentioned that free speech is also dangerous. Unfettered speech is important to the function of a free and open society, but protecting speech risks the popularization of vicious, totalitarian ideas like those of Karl Marx and Adolf Hitler. It runs the danger of the radicalization of lost souls who encounter bad ideas, embrace them, engrave "Hey Fascist, Catch" lyrics from the anti-fascist song Bella Ciao and gaming memes on rifle cartridges, and then murder their political opponents. Undoubtedly, the same people would have found that equally ironic. And Kirk's larger point is true across the board. Any freedom that allows us to live to our fullest, any restriction on state intervention into our lives, can be abused by the worst among us. Evil people are shielded by Fourth Amendment protections against unreasonable search and seizure, as are good people. We give up such protections at our peril in hopes of rooting out evil. What peril? Kirk touched on this in his 2023 talk when he said, "The Second Amendment is there, God forbid, so that you can defend yourself against a tyrannical government," and noted that governments tend to get tyrannical. Yes, freedom can be abused by bad people, but if we can't trust everybody to use freedom wisely, why would we trust people in government to wisely administer a more restrictive regime by which they get to disarm the public, censor speech, invade homes at will, and more? Those who seek coercive power over others by working in government are at least as prone to abuse their position as is anybody else. There are trade-offs not just in liberty, but in restricting liberty. Given that we have a natural right to be free, and that Kirk was correct to say that all governments tend towards tyranny, we're better off trusting in more freedom rather than less. That's a recognition that there are no risk-free options. The call for gun control gets even dumber. But the focus on Kirk's death by gunshot gets even stupider. The conservative activist was reportedly killed with a single round from a Mauser Model 98 30-06 caliber bolt-action rifle. The Mauser 98 was originally designed in the 19th century for military use, but has long since been largely supplanted in that role by semi-automatic and then select fire weapons, most using less powerful cartridges. Yes, the most common cartridges used in AR and AK-type weapons are generally less powerful than other cartridges used for hunting. But the old design remains ideal for hunting large game animals. It is accurate if properly zeroed, has a longer effective range than many modern military weapons, and cartridges such as the 30-06 are likely to cleanly drop an animal with a single shot. That's why many of the old rifles were adapted, sometimes with modifications, for hunting. Modern bolt-action hunting rifles used for stalking deer, boar, elk, and the like are variations on designs that go back to the Mauser 98 and similar rifles. That is, the hunting rifle allegedly used by Tyler Robinson to murder Charlie Kirk is an example of the only type of firearm gun control advocates say they don't want to ban or restrict. No major law advocated in recent years, such as magazine capacity limits or bans on semi-automatic weapons, would have affected it. Blame culture? Some observers are upset that the left, the radical fringe of it anyway, is blamed for Kirk's murder when Tyler Robinon's family is conservative, Mormon, culturally traditional, and comfortable with firearms. But the Robinson family didn't shoot Charlie Kirk. Tyler Robinson committed this crime after he adopted views very different from those of his family, embraced the use of violence against political foes, and inscribed anti-fascist slogans on his ammunition before taking a fatal shot. If we're going to delve into culture wars, we could mention the unfortunate use of speech in the social media cesspool. That's where Robinson was seemingly radicalized, where people celebrated Kirk's death, and where a few even called for more targets. But that's part of the trade-offs of liberty. If we're all to be free, and we should be, some will use freedom in repulsive ways. We should punish those who push action to criminal extremes. But all liberty can be misused. And not only are the risks of liberty worth the dangers, they're also far less perilous than granting governments enhanced powers that they'll inevitably abuse.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back, with sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian, and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, The trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government.
Take the first punch. Let's go. Put up or shut up, Charlie Kirk.
You know what?
Put up or shut
up. First of all, it says very clearly in the Bible that we shouldn't harm those that are worthy of protection, and you obviously are.
You're just worried I'll kick your ass.
Well on Medicare age. But let's play this out. Despite the obvious fact, and you and I both know who would win this duel. However, hold on a second. This is a great embodiment of the American left. You can't debate, so you want to go to blows. You can't. The only thing that is preventing us from this country from going to civil war is debate and dialogue, and you don't even want to have debate. You want to go and you want to wrestle like a 7-year-old. Who here is actually dividing the country?
A gentleman's fist fight. You know what that is, right?
Again, I would like to think that we are elevated above trying to go have a fight in the streets.
Well, you were wrong, Charlie, about that. You were right about a lot of things, but you were wrong about that. Joining us now on the Wake Up America show is our friend Jon Miltimore. We call it Mondays with Miltimore. Is at the American Institute for Economic Research. He's a good friend of the show to talk about what I'm calling consequences culture, the wave of firings and suspensions after Charlie Kirk's assassination. Good morning, John. How are you feeling today?
Good morning, AP. Like I told you, it's been kind of a tough week. I felt a little sad all week.
So, NPR says at least 33 people have lost jobs or been suspended, mostly teachers, for celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. Justice or goes too far? Your thoughts?
Well, I've spoke out about this a little bit, and I said the First Amendment. I don't think anybody should go to jail for celebrating the death of anyone, whether it's Charlie Kirk or anyone else. The First Amendment, says Congress shall make no law, and certainly no federal law, would say that somebody can go behind bars. But the First Amendment doesn't say anything about protecting people from consequences of their speech, and I think we see people that are gleeful over a death, which I don't care who the person is that died. I find that abhorrent. I find it awful. And this is something when other people who've died, I've chided them, including libertarians before, that piled on me once over this, because they were celebrating Don Rumsfeld's death. And I said, I don't care who the person is that died. To celebrate someone's death is ghoulish. And so people losing their jobs over that, I should say that they're not, nobody should be surprised by that. Like, employers have no obligation in most cases to keep you if you are going to be saying things that they disagree with that could bring harm to their organization. Public teachers might have more protection, actually, in many cases, than private employers. I think it's a lesson. Let's be mindful of how we use speech. This country is a great thing because we do have a First Amendment that actually means something here. Unlike other countries, you look at what's going on in Europe right now. People just don't lose jobs over speech. Like, they go behind bars, and it's happening every day in some of these countries. But that doesn't mean that you have some constitutional right to your job to say and spout off these things. All that said, I'm going to make it. Doing kind of what we saw the left doing during this period, when we make lists of people and go searching to find comments that we hate and going and proactively getting people fired over that. I don't like that. I don't like seeing that. It takes us further down this political warfare, which is going to destroy a country if we can't find a way to dial this back. And let me be clear. People that lose their jobs over, like when they're saying Charlie Kirk deserved it. I expect that to happen. And if the employer doesn't care, that's fine too. Like these are decisions that employers need to make. But putting all this pressure on companies and saying like, we're not going to let Stephen King, we're going to boycott if Barnes and Noble has his books over his comment that he retracted already. All of that is toxic. And I think conservatives need to kind of remember that. Remember that a decade ago, they were the ones that were being targeted in this way, losing jobs in this way. And it's not a healthy thing.
Here's what I have to say about that. Boo, John.
I'm not surprised.
Boo. Terrible opinion that you're allowed to have. But I don't think that you should be fired for. You shouldn't treat your friends the same way that you treat your enemies. It's not cancel culture, John.
I saw you say that.
It's consequence culture. Right. This is the result of when will they learn that their actions have consequences? Cancel culture is that the left wanted to try and get us fired because Christians didn't want to bake wedding cakes. They wanted us to transgress our morals and force us to live according to their worldview. That's cancel culture. Consequence culture is different. Consequence culture is that these people are saying evil, disgusting things, celebrating political violence and encouraging it in many cases, and supporting it with through their institutions, such as education. We're talking about Secret Service agents here, John. We're talking about people who work for the government. We're talking about people who are on the taxpayer dime. And you're not even going to mention them differently than the people who maybe work at a plant or a factory and just happen to be a leftist or a Democrat. So speak to me, John, before I lose respect for you on this, because I feel like there's a moral weakness here, John, and I want to point this out because I really, I love you, and as a friend, I think you need to change on this. I think you need to move in my direction because you didn't even mention people who are pilots, who are flying airlines, who are flying pilots. Talk about glorifying murder, and you're a pilot. What kind of mentality of a person do you want to be responsible for other people's lives? A Secret Service agent, their job is to protect the President of the United States. And they're glorifying murder. Teachers. So can you for at least a moment, John, say, yes, those people should absolutely be fired who are on the taxpayer. FEMA employees, people who work for the government, should they be fired, John?
So Austin, I think you need to understand a couple things first. First, I was saying like these depend on the context and where you're working matters. Okay,
so they should be fired.
And the sad truth is, government employees probably have more free speech protection constitutionally than the average person who's going to work at Home Depot or a Delta pilot. No, government employees in many cases, you can go public school teachers, for example, speech that they make outside of the classroom does have certain constitutional protections that go because they are government employees. Now that doesn't mean they can't be held accountable. They are, but there's a whole legal test here. My point is this.
It should be things like maybe murder and pedophilia, right? So if you advocate for murder or you advocate for pedophilia, you don't just have a constitutional right for that, right?
My point is, I like it when Delta, if they have a pilot that is spouting out about this, I like it when Delta says, no, I don't want to employ people who are plotting death. I think that is prudent. But if we have individuals in the libertarian movement or conservatives that are going around scouring the internet for things that Charlie Kirk posts they don't like and trying to go get the average Joe fired over that. I don't like to see that because what we're doing is we are weaponizing speech again in the way that was. I didn't like it 10 years ago.
You need weapons, John, because I think whether you like it or not, or whether you even agree with it or not, the left is at war with us in our values. And heretofore, it has been a Cold War up until the murder of Charlie Kirk. But at this point, it's breaking out now more into hot war. We saw a transgender activist shooting up a Catholic school for the second time here in the United States. The left's moral bankruptcy has led them to a point now, John, where they don't see a difference between you. My next guest, he's a NatCon, right? National Conservative Will Chamberlain. He hosts the National Conservative Conference. A lot of things that I don't agree with him on, for example, politically, economically, et cetera, right? But the left doesn't see a National Conservative versus Jon Miltimore versus Austin Petersen versus Nick Fuentes versus Charlie Kirk. They look at us all the same. And unfortunately, John, it's like I don't want to be at war with all of Germany. I would rather just be able to go to war and fight Adolf Hitler, but I don't get the choice because Adolf Hitler sends his army. He sends his Wehrmacht. He sends his SS. He sends his Gestapo. He sends his pawns. And those are the people that we have to face on the front lines, John. They're not to be reasoned with. They're incapable of reason. They're incapable of logic. They know only one language. Javier Milei said this very, very succinctly last week. Highly recommend that you read his statement on the Charlie Kirk murder if you haven't. But the language of the left is violence, John. The language of the left is violence. There's no high road. The road is washed out, right? You're at a war whether you agree with it or not. How do you respond?
Well, I think we have to ask ourselves, will these tactics make that war hotter or colder? Okay, that's the first thing. I think this is going to exacerbate that war if we take this mentality like they bring a knife, we'll bring a gun.
Hotter.
If they bring a gun, we'll bring a bazooka.
Yeah,
right?
Do you recognize this?
We need to.
Do you recognize this bomb, John?
Right.
Yeah,
I do not.
Okay, this is what they dropped over Nagasaki. This is the instrument of death that was dropped over Nagasaki. You say that when the war gets hotter, that's true, right? So they started it, they bombed Pearl Harbor, and then we finish it with hotter. You have to, when you fight fire with fire, you have to have hotter fire, John. You have to go nuclear, right? And that's how you defeat a threat. If somebody comes in with a knife and they want to stab me with a knife, what do they say? Don't bring a knife to a gunfight, right? It's supposed to get hotter. When war is declared, they bomb our Pearl Harbor, we nuke their Nagasaki. No?
Nagasaki, no. I would like to avoid that war. And I hear a lot of talk. My phone started blowing up last week with civil war. Like people were that upset. I do not want us to go down this road. And, but it did cross my mind. If you look, Elijah Lovejoy, I don't know if that name means anything to you. He was an abolitionist in the 1830s who was a printer and was doing work trying to in an anti-slavery paper, and they destroyed his shop and killed him. And that we look back historically as one of those events that led us down that path to where we actually had a civil war. And it crossed my mind. I said, is this the Charlie Kirk's death? Is it going to be some event like that? I don't want it to become that. This was one person whose motivations we're still trying to find out. The suspect, we don't know a lot about him. If you look, the left will tell you he was a MAGA-loving, from a conservative family who liked Nick Fuentes and was a groyper. On the right, we're hearing that he lived with a trans person, who was into furries and all these things. We need to dial it back, find out more about this and his motivations. But I don't want to see us escalate this. And some of these tactics will escalate it. It reminds me of like Romeo and Juliet, the Montagues and the Capulets, where every event escalates it further. And the chiding turns into killing, and the killing turns into this tragedy where everyone dies at the end, right? Mm-hmm. Like I think we need to be careful. We need to look at our own words and actions in these situations and learn to govern ours. And look too, like, what do we say? How do we use rhetoric? I see what the left says. I find it abhorrent that they're celebrating the death of, like I said, of anyone. You're right. This isn't some. I see some people on the left saying the right thing. Ezra Klein said some beautiful things. He said Charlie Kirk was practicing politics in the right way. He's going to campuses. He's sharing ideas. He endured. If you look, like I didn't listen to Charlie Kirk a lot, didn't know a lot about him, but I've watched some, he would go and he'd be hammered on these college campuses, and they would call him fascist and Nazi and all these words, and they'd be abusive to him, and he just would counter with questions and dialogue. And there's something we can learn about that. The takeaway for me here is we have a conflict in this country. Right? It's serious. It's not just on political ideas. It's moral. There's a moral chasm, and we need to learn how to resolve this not through weapons, but words, and talk to one another. And there are things we can do politically. I want to see the university system defunded. I think these ideas coming out of universities are bad.
But weapons are an important part of this, are they not, John? Like, because violence has been brought to our door, it is not just wise and prudent, but intelligent to be heavily armed in this country and prepared for violence, is it not? Talk to me about the time when violence is both necessary and righteous, John. Explain to me the scenario, the situation when in what circumstances that the justification for the use of physical force is justified against these murderous people, these murderous communists. Under what scenario?
I own weapons. I believe there's a time to use weapons. I'll be honest, I couldn't go to an event like Charlie Kirk did, because if people behaved in this way toward me, I would not stand there and take it. I know myself. I would not put myself in this situation, because when people tried to dump tomato sauce on me, or when people confronted me in these ways, I know I would be taking some actions that I wouldn't want myself to take in public. Okay, I have an old school streak. I have an honor. You don't poke me in the chest. You don't get to dump things on me. I couldn't have been Charlie Kirk for those reasons, but I understand the better angels that said when we go and try to resolve all these things through fists or knives or guns, that is not the way. And that's what I want people to understand. And there's things the right can take from this too. I'm seeing, like, I see these things in people's bios, like the left is scum, the left is all these things, pretty awful things. And I get it. I don't like the left's ideas, but you know what? Your neighbor probably has some of those. Like, I remember during the pandemic, one of my neighbors threw up a Black Lives Matter sign, and it was kind of jarring. I was surprised that, you know, like our neighborhood doesn't put up political signs at all, but they put one up. I don't think they're the people that would celebrate Charlie Kirk's death, right? I think they are regular people. They might have ideas very different from mine, and we see this. People say awful things all the time, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're awful people.
I'm talking about the type of people, John, who engage in violent rhetoric. I'm talking about the kind of people who are calling for us to be murdered. I'm talking about the type of people who call us Nazis in order to justify the violence against us, right? And in my opinion, I'm not sure how familiar you are with like post-World War II Germany, but there was a program that they launched called denazification, right? Where they stripped Nazi symbols out of society. They outlawed their organizations. They removed the Nazi influence from schools, government jobs, and the press, right? If you were a teacher who pushed Nazi propaganda, you couldn't go back to teaching. If you were a bureaucrat who enforced the Nazi regime, you were gone, right? They rewired the culture to make sure that the disease didn't come back, right? This is where we could go with this in consequence culture and not violate any free speech principles whatsoever, right? If you are a teacher who enforces leftist, violent leftist ideology, if you teach communism in schools, you're fired. If you teach transgender leftist views and talk about furries and bulges and celebrating Charlie Kirk's murder, you're fired. This is the true denazification program that we could engage in, and it would not in any way violate any libertarian principle whatsoever. And it would be a tool of war that is not a violent tool of war, but it would be one that would purge the cancer that is causing this violence in our society. Our society would be less violent, in my opinion. There would be less Irina Zarutskas, Ukrainian refugees being murdered on trains. There would be fewer conservative activists being murdered if we engaged in a denazification campaign at a minimum on the taxpayer side of protections of things. You can't serve in the military. You can't be a cop. You can't be a teacher. You can't be an airline pilot or have a position of responsibility and advocate for murder or for violent ideologies like communism. How does that sound to you, John?
Like communism. How does that sound to you, John?
I think going through this process where you say if you hold these views, you don't get to work, is dangerous. And I don't like Marxism. I have an article in my Substack right now about how we got here, okay? And if you look in 1989, the New York Times had an article on the mainstreaming of Marxism in U.S. campuses. And it was, even as the Soviet Empire was collapsing, you had these academics that were celebrating the rise of Marxism in U.S. academies across the country and explaining it. And it wasn't based on the economics of Marxism so much. It was the new fads of critical theory and race and gender, and they said that's where all the exciting stuff is happening. And there was an infiltration happening under our nose, and we didn't see it. And I think we should, as a country, stop funding these universities that are polluting minds. Now, these universities can exist on their own, right? I'm not saying we shut down the universities, but pouring all of this money into a corrupt, bloated, ineffectual university system has been very damaging for this country, and it has been radicalizing people for a long time. We have no obligation to subsidize that, and we should stop. And there's some progress being made there. The problem is the Trump administration is more dangling dollars in front of them, saying, well, if you do this, you don't get the money. And if you allow this to be said, you don't get the money. We can't afford it. We're $37.5 trillion in debt already. The university system is a mess. It's polluting minds. We have no obligation to fund it. That's step one. Okay, that is a libertarian free market solution, because
if we can't,
these institutions for a very long time.
If we can't live in libertarian Valhalla, though, John, if we can't live in our libertarian utopia where we defund the university system entirely, and God knows I would love to see it, then firing leftist teachers, and you get, your panties in a wad about escalating rhetoric is the worst that happens, I think it's probably a sacrifice that I'm willing to make. And I think that you should probably understand, John, a little bit more about the forces of evil that are arrayed against you. And to some extent, I think that you're sort of like advocating for unilateral disarmament, right? You can't turn the other cheek against stuff like this, in my opinion. I'll give you the last word, though, John. I've been beating up on you enough already. Thank you for being such a good sport. Go ahead and say your last word, and then if you want to plug anything, please do.
No, it's good being with you. I don't feel beaten up on. I realize how high tensions are. And I will say this, being on Twitter over the weekend, it inspired me. I'm going to a flip phone. I'm done with this being sucked into Twitter in the negativity. I think that is something a lot of people should consider. I see Twitter making people nuts. I see how it can radicalize people. And I won't say it's just Twitter. You can go on this alleged shooter, these Reddit threads he had been on there apparently since he'd been about 10 years old from what the reports I saw. These can change minds and warp minds. And you learn to see everyone as an enemy. Go outside, watch a sunset, take a walk, pull out of this a little bit. I understand for people who are actually financially, like it's their career, right? It's a little harder to do that. But the average person isn't getting paid to be on Twitter. They're just part of the matrix. They've been sucked into it, and it's affecting them. It's radicalizing them. Have a coffee with your neighbor. If you look, America outside this sort of digital war that we're having is a pretty good place. And we need to be involved in that to a degree, because our ideas matter. We need to vote for candidates that are actually going to pass good policies. But you don't have to let this consume you. And I see this consuming a lot of people. And that's where you end up with, I think Charlie Kirk said it really best. He said, if we don't talk to one another, that's when the violence comes. And that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to go on campuses and talk to people, and he ended up having his life taken. And it's pretty horrifying. And I think Americans, not pretty horrifying, it's horrifying. And a lot of Americans see this, and they're waking up and realizing, maybe my country isn't like I thought. Maybe it's in a worse place. And trying to analyze how we got there and what we can do. I think it starts with governing our own rhetoric at times, getting out of these echo chambers that are really radicalizing us. Those aren't solutions in themselves. Like I said, there's things in the political realm that need to happen. But a full-scale assault against all ideas that we disagree with. There's a lot of. I think leftism has. It's a flawed philosophy. It's got. I think Marx's ideas were evil. I think he created something evil, and it's like a brainworm that works on people. But to adopt some of these tactics, I think would actually do more harm than good if we think we can just extinguish ideas in that fashion.
I just don't know how. When you have an actual violent, evil force arrayed against you, how you beat something like that with talking to your neighbor. At times, every normal man must feel, the need to hoist the black flag and begin slitting throats. John Miltimore, your Substack is The Take. Read his takes. You will like him if you're a little bit more on the hippy dippy side of things, we'll say. Just kidding. John, thanks so much for coming on here today, and thanks for disagreeing respectfully and not murdering me over my views.
Good being with you, AP. One last plug. We did just publish something on this at thedailyeconomy.org, and the perils of using bullets to solve conflicts. It just went up, and I think it's something I'd encourage people to read. I'm proud of what we put out. And just a closing, I wasn't a big fan of Charlie Kirk. I feel, like sometimes I'd mock Charlie Kirk because I saw he got so sucked into politics. I think at times it made his message seem convoluted, but the more I looked at his work, I believe he was doing some very good things and practicing politics in a very American way, trying to persuade people. And the way he was violently taken from us is it's absolutely horrifying.
Thank you, Jon Miltimore. Mondays with Miltimore. Have a good back next Monday. Have a good one.
We heard, here's what I was told so far, and I'll tell you what was wrong. First, I heard he's a registered Republican. Not true. Okay. Then he was a donor to Trump. Not true. His father works in the sheriff's office. Not true. There was a picture of him wearing a pro-Trump shirt. Not true. Member of the Democratic Socialists of America. Not true. We don't know what he is. Well, how are you so sure he's of the left? Now, I agree when you write on a bullet, what did he write on the bullet? Catch this fascist, which is also a gamer thing. Okay, but now I'm hearing he may have been part of that group for whom Charlie Kirk was not right-wing enough. You mean the Groypers, yes. I mean, so that would... you're sure he's not that? I'm not sure that he's not that. A minute ago you were sure what he was. Hold on, Bill. Hold on. Okay, because I've been... You were. The extreme high likelihood, given the fact that he said to his family that Charlie Kirk was too hateful, is that he was not a Groyper, because the Groypers would have said that Charlie wasn't hateful enough. Okay, let's be very, I know this movement.
There we go.
We heard, here's what
All right, Will Chamberlain coming up next. I think he's a little more on my side of the equation. This side. We'll be right back. It's the Wake Up America show. You're watching the 4 Liberty Network. Don't go away.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is...
Oh man, did you guys see that? That activist in America, Charlie Kirk? He got shot. Did you see that? That guy loves gun violence and he got shot. Did you see that? Oh man, Charlie Kirk. You know, to the Charlie Kirk family. Did you see all that blood that came out of his body? Boy, it was like, whoa. To every Zionist, every Christian Zionist, may you be just like that shop, the Target. All his followers, just like the shop, the Target. I'm not saying that violence isn't the way, so don't misconstrue my words, okay? Did you see all that blood? That dude's dead. There is it.
Joining us now on the Wake Up America show is Will Chamberlain. He's a senior counsel at Article 3 Project, the vice president of external affairs at Edmund Burke Foundation. Great foundation. One of the organizers of the National Conservative Conferences. Joining us live right now is a lawyer. Good morning, Will. Thanks for joining us here on the Wake Up America show. Glad to have you here.
Good to be with you, Austin.
Your reaction to that video we just heard.
Who is that guy? What even was that?
Yeah, a guy celebrating just another one of the apparently this is just another mainstream Democrat expressing mainstream Democrat views, Will, that political violence is necessary and justified and even good.
Yeah, it's remarkable. There's a lot of angles you could take on this. The sheer number of people we're finding who celebrated the death, the sheer number of people who are liking the tweets that are, out there. I mean, you can find posts that are mocking Kirk's death that have 600,000 likes. And it's useful that that's happening because it's a way of showing, okay, there's 10% of this country, maybe, that would laugh if you or I were murdered by an assassin. And would, maybe make some mealy-mouthed acknowledgement that our children would be growing up without a father, and that's a little sad. But that's about it. That's the extent of it, and it's very clarifying.
Will, you're a lawyer, so let's talk about the law. Do these firings of teachers, pilots, professors, even a Secret Service agent raise any legal free speech issues? Are they all justifiable under the law? Do government employees get special free speech protections for things that they say when they're not, in the line of duty as a teacher, for example? Talk to us about the law.
Well, I mean, as a broad statement of the law, no, there's no protection for celebrating the death of somebody via assassination. That's a public conduct issue. And, just as if you try to, say that I'm a fascist, therefore I should keep my job and you get fired for it, or I'm a member of the Communist Party or something, you don't get to keep your job. You don't have being a member of the class that celebrates Charlie Kirk's death. That's not protected. That's not a protected class like race or gender. So there's no broad protection. Now, for individual cases where maybe the teacher has tenure, maybe you're a government employee with civil service protections, obviously there's a process that has to be gone through. And unions often will negotiate this too. They kind of require some sort of administrative leave and then some sort of tribunal hearing where whether or not you actually violated the policies is adjudicated. But that's specific to individual cases where there's essentially either a negotiated union contract or a civil service protection under law that protects the person from being fired outright.
So a Secret Service agent, for example, put on leave underneath this one, would they have a civil service protection? And will this have to be negotiated, litigated?
I mean, if they want to, I would assume, right? That's what it means. They were put on leave instead of fired outright. There's a reason for that. They likely have protections from just simply being outright fired. That said, there's almost certainly something in the Secret Service guidebook, employee handbook, if you will, that says you can't engage in public discourse like this that indicates you'd be okay with assassination, given that your job is literally to protect people from being assassinated.
What about pilots? Delta and American Airlines have let a few go with some of their statements over the last few days. Are they protected or not?
I think they have some sort of union, so they may have some union protections that prevent outright firing. But again, same deal. There's no world where those union protections don't include, their employee handbook doesn't include some sort of morality clause that allows for the company to fire you if you've done something brazenly immoral.
Yeah, Will, a significant portion of my audience this morning is vehemently disagreeing with me over this question of cancel culture that I'm calling consequence culture. They say that we shouldn't engage in the same tactics that the left has engaged in. They say that we should try and tone down the rhetoric, that it's on us to do things like have coffee with our neighbors and try and spend more time touching grass and spending more time outside and not doom scrolling. Do people like that have a point, or are they missing the larger point?
I want to be charitable and say maybe they have 5% of a point or 2% of a point, but they're wrong in the general thesis. I mean, there's a few reasons they're wrong. First, there was no negotiated settlement on cancel culture. Like, we made all these complaints about it, and the was like, we don't care. We're just going to keep doing it. It's like my first, you must make your adversaries live up to their own book of rules. They wanted cancel culture. They must get it. Second, I can't think of a more justifiable instance of saying this is something you lose your job over, this is something you face social sanction for in a democracy, than celebrating the political assassination of your opponent, because you have to think about the consequence of what that means if it's normalized. That means civil war. To understand, a world where political assassination is normalized, is treated as something okay and something to celebrate, is the Spanish Civil War. That's where that's you can just count on that happening 5 years down the line, because if it's celebrated, if people think it's a acceptable thing, then you'll get more and more and more of them, and eventually the left keeps doing political assassinations and succeeding them. The other side will return in kind. Civil war. So. Trust me, that's the worst conceivable outcome for the United States that I can think of. Civil wars are bad, bad, bad. Talk about a way to massively destroy everything we built in this country, the wealth and well-being of almost every American. Civil war would be destructive. And as a result, social sanction for cheering on political assassinations has to be dramatic, and it has to be enforced.
This is a clip that I'm about to play here of prominent Democrats and what they had been saying before the assassination. This is Kamala Harris, Eric Swalwell, Jamie Raskin, AOC, Rachel Maddow, Tim Walz. This is what they were saying before the assassination.
Let me ask you tonight, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do.
This is what kicking the shit out of fascism looks like.
Try to prevent the spread of the lawlessness and the fascist chaos that's been unleashed against us.
So when we say Donald Trump is a fascist, fascism, a huge component of fascism is uniting racism, bigotry, a form of racist nationalism.
We are now living in a fascist dictatorship.
And we are worried about potential rise of fascism in this country. We're worried about our democracy falling to an authoritarian and potentially fascist form of government.
Not only to roll over to Donald Trump's will, but to roll over our democracy and allow him to take over this country as a fascist dictator.
When fascism isn't just coming, it's already here.
The former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, said, "No one has ever been more dangerous to this country than Donald Trump, and he is a fascist to his core."
There we go. Okay, so Will, there's no different. We have our political differences, right? You're organizer of the National Conservative Conference. I'm very critical of many of the National Conservative viewpoints as a ideological libertarian. I'm highly critical of Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens and Dave Smith, and people have gone down that rabbit hole. But to them, there's no difference between you, me, Nick Fuentes, Dave Smith, Candace Owens. Yeah. We're all the same to them, aren't we?
Yeah, we're all the same. There's no distinction. Charlie was the guy. Charlie was practicing small d democracy, really in a very obvious way. He was going on college campuses and talking to people and expressing his views and having engaged in civil discourse. There's nothing. I mean, whatever your definition of fascism is, how does it not include assassinating somebody like that? That's the precursor to it. And so to hear all these Democrats just so willy-nilly bandying the term about, it's ludicrous. And that's another reason I have no time for the both sides unity stuff. Like, I'm sorry, it's on the Democrats to de-radicalize their own base. The Democrats to walk back from the precipice, to give honor to the other side of this political discussion, because this democracy we have doesn't work internally unless there's a certain amount of honor being given by each side to one another. It doesn't have to be substantial, but think about how in the British Parliament they say things like the honorable member opposite, or my honorable opponent, the honorable member for this jurisdiction, whatever. There's a reason for that. It's the idea that because we are in a democracy, we honor each other, we respect the idea that either side could take power. What Democrats have really been doing aggressively, and for a decade now, is aggressively dishonoring the right. And we're seeing its most damaging and manifest consequence with Charlie Kirk's assassination.
Will, when you talk about uniting, with the left is saying it's time to tone things down for us to unite the left and right. I think that the time for something like that is past. And you say that if they, that they need to clean up their own ranks. I think that maybe the time for that is past. I think maybe it's time for us to talk about something like a potential wide-scale denazification of our culture, something like we saw after post-World War II Germany. And I think you can even do things like that don't necessarily violate American constitutional rights or principles. But we do need to have a conversation about that. But in terms of the right, this is more of like, our subcultures here. But I noticed a sincere change in the rhetoric of how the Groypers themselves, who were initially blamed for this, their rhetoric towards Charlie Kirk before he died and after he died. Before he died, they saw him as a fake Christian. They said that he was leading people off the cliff because, he included homosexuals in the conservative movement, et cetera, et cetera. He wasn't right-wing enough. And now many of these Groypers, people in that movement who, it's a significant movement. I think some of it's AstroTurf from overseas. But I do think a lot of Americans probably are behind Nick Fuentes, whether we agree with that or not. But now people like Matt Walsh and others are saying that perhaps it is time for us to set aside our differences on the right and unite the right in order to defeat the left. How would you feel putting together a coalition that would include people like Nick Fuentes or Dave Smith or Candace Owens or now Tucker Carlson, who seems to be at odds with a lot of what you say, what I say, right? A very sincere disagreements. How do you feel about that?
Well, I'd say, I'd take everybody but Fuentes and put them in one bucket, right? And so Candace and Tucker and Dave, who I have profound disagreements with, sometimes think I say really insane things. Candace still does, even now on this Charlie Kirk stuff, as far as I'm concerned. But whatever. I'm not a person who thinks like you need to be pro-Israel to be in the right, or that it needs to be a litmus test for right-wing politics. Like I think the anti-Israel position is pretty silly. I think it leads to a lot of internal contradictions with other right-wing thinking. But I'm not a this isn't like a litmus test or a bar. Nick Fuentes, as far as I'm concerned, he's not on the team, and he hasn't been on the team for a very long time. This is a guy who launched 2 Groyper wars. One of them was against Charlie Kirk, and then most recently it was against Donald Trump to try and get him not elected. And then even now, what did he spend the last 2 to 3 months doing prior to the Kirk assassination? Well, he was trying to explain how Gavin Newsom would actually be a better candidate than J.D. Vance. So I see him as completely unreliable, kind of guy who'd betray our movement in a second. And also in combination with some unbelievably noxious views, and it's a deeply sociopathic movement. So I don't think there's any reason to unite with him. I don't think he provides any value to any movement that's trying to win a popular majority. I think he and his followers, like, I don't know to the extent his followers, like, they should really just stop being Groypers. That would be the simplest move. But he's like kryptonite for any political movement. So yeah, I would say that absolutely not.
I was listening to the speakers. I'm highly engaged with the national conservative movement. Many of them considering themselves, to be post-liberals, which essentially, ex post Austin Petersen and the Tea Party people in the Republican Party, which I've found very disconcerting, and I talk about quite frequently on this show. But one of the things that I thought was interesting was that Yoram Hazony, who has been the progenitor of this movement and a popularizer of it, has said something similar to what you said, which is that I don't think that you need to be pro-Jew or that you need to love Jews in order to be a national conservative. However, he then went on to talk about the concerns of the people that are behind Nick Fuentes and how they seem to have populated the national conservative movement. Can you speak to that?
On that front, it's a little trickier. I think that, and part of me thinks this is going to probably have less valence in the aftermath of Kirk's death. I think that Kirk's death is kind of a unifying force, and I've certainly seen a lot fewer people talking about Israel. And it just makes it realize that this is not the biggest issue facing American politics by any means, right? We have a serious domestic threat that we're facing, and that the question of how much military aid should be given to Israel, when should it be tapered off, how much, these are issues that are not central to American politics, or rather should not be, and should not have the great valence that they do. To the extent that we have people in the movement who disagree, I mean, I think this is where we need to honor each other and have internal discussions, like we tried to do at NatCon. And I admit sometimes I struggle to honor some of these positions that I see as indistinguishable from Obama era leftism. Like it's one thing to be generally against regime change wars, which I am, or against all the Iraq war and endless neocon intervention, which I am. And it's another thing to look at Trump's bombing of the nuclear sites in Iran and think to yourself, wow, that was a huge mistake. I'm like, what? Sorry, what? Nobody died. We eliminated a major foreign policy concern for ourselves and our allies that had existed for over 20 years without a single person being killed or any American setting foot on the ground in Iran. The Israelis took the brunt of their own war, and Israeli civilians were on the front line of that war. They had skin in the game big time. We didn't, and we solved a major foreign policy problem for ourselves, and that's a problem for you. Why do you? I have a hard time distinguishing that from anything other than just such aggressive hostility to Israel that you're forgetting that America has national security interests, and our allies in the Middle East have national security interests that are furthered by Iran not having a nuclear program. Clearly,
do you think that a conservative embrace of consequence culture could actually strengthen our movement, both legally and politically, by just making it clear that there are standards in public life?
Yes, I think it does. It will strengthen our movement. It gives our movement something to. It's a useful thing to be able to do as a way to respond to the Kirk assassination that isn't violent, I think. And the left, you have to just flip this around. The equivalent figure on the left being assassinated in similar circumstances would lead to riots in the streets and fire, the burning down of major American cities. I see this as the way for right-wingers to feel like to respond, to be involved in a civilized manner, which is, I think, a fundamentally right-wing value. Like the right wing, to me, always and everywhere is the party of civilization, right? And so it's important that we behave in a civilized manner.
How do you think that the Trump administration should react? What should the Trump administration be doing right now? Trump obviously misses Charlie Kirk. He was a good friend of his. He was obviously shot. Do you think that it's finally sunk in now, the scale of the level of the war that the left is engaged in against us? Or do you think that they're going to sort of, punt this cultural moment? Because in every crisis, of course, is an opportunity.
I think they know exactly what's at stake. I've watched Stephen Miller give speeches that indicate he knows exactly what's at stake. And I think that they understand what they need to do, and that there's the third way, right? If one way is sort of unity, pablum, passive nonsense, that's not what the administration is going to do. If there's the rioting in the streets and burn down the cities, that's not what we're going to do. The third way is the legitimate use of public authority to bring the enemies of order to justice. That's what will happen. It is the legitimate use of public authority. And I expect that, those who are involved on all these Antifa group chats are going to find themselves in trouble because, guess what? Like, conspiring to bring about the death of Charlie Kirk is not lawful. We will bring you down. And moreover, we just simply don't have to tolerate it. Obviously, we have to work within the constraints of the First Amendment and the laws of this country. But there are, again, the Constitution is not a suicide pact. the Constitution is flexible enough, and it was designed to be flexible enough to deal with a circumstance where you have a domestic terrorist movement in the country trying to bring things down. I mean, think about this. I mean, what did the FBI do to the KKK? It used to be one of the most powerful forces, scary forces in the country. Federal legislation was passed, and now it's a joke. I think it's the job of Kash Patel's FBI to do to the Antifa organization what J. Edgar Hoover's FBI did to the Ku Klux Klan.
All right, that's Will Chamberlain. Will, is there anything else about this topic or anything else that you'd like to share with us before we let you go?
I mean, keep fighting. It's personally, I knew Charlie Kirk personally. I think you did too, Austin. He was a wonderful man, a very thoughtful person, a force of nature. It's an incredible tragedy that we lost him, and I can't. It's still hard to think that he's gone. If anything, he strangely feels more alive than ever because I see him all the time, and I see him speaking all the time. So it's like he's just as ever present as he was because of how much content he put out there. That he was a content machine, if you think about it, going to all these college campuses, generating endless clips. But I can't help but send my condolences to the family. I'm so sorry for Erica and her poor children, and I hope for the best.
Thank you for those kind words, Will. He was a good man, and I did meet him only once, but when we met and shook hands, he called me friend, so I'll call him friend as well. Will, thank you for your time, for being so generous with your time, and thanks for staying at the spearhead of the fight in this country against the left. We appreciate you, sir.
Thank you, Austin.
I may or may not. They're negotiating TikTok right now. We may let it die, or we may, I don't know. It depends. Up to China. It doesn't matter too much. I'd like to do it for the kids that like it. I mean, selfishly speaking, I did very well on TikTok, and I got the youth vote. I got numbers that nobody's ever even come close to in the Republican Party. Nobody. If you look back to Romney and all these people, they got practically no votes. I got a lot. And some was attributed to TikTok, and a lot was attributed to Charlie. Well, my message is this. They have to be very, very careful.
Thank you to Will Chamberlain for joining us this morning. See, we got a little bit of everything on the show this morning. You got my opinion, you got Jon Miltimore's opinion, you got Will Chamberlain's opinion. That's quite a wide array of opinions. Maybe we need to get some leftists and some Democrats on here, although we watch their clips all the time. We get to hear what they say in their TikToks. All right, folks, it's time. You hit the $100 mark for today's show. So that means Breakfast Theater comes alive. And today we've got a very special guest. You've seen the headlines about the shooters, furry fixation, the trans partner, the Biden memes. Well, we went and booked on this show the most authentic source possible, live from Reddit, straight out of a Discord server you never want to join. Please welcome America's most radicalized trans furry. And remember, don't feed it after midnight. Don't go away. We'll be right back with our bonus content, a trans furry joining us live on the Wake Up America show to talk about how they got that way. We're going to go to a brief little break. We'll be right back. It's the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. Don't leave. Oh my God. Hi, everyone. Hi. Thanks for inviting me. It's so validating to finally be taken seriously by people I absolutely despise. Look, I know you think that I'm some deranged weirdo, and you're right. But that's literally my identity now. And if you don't respect it, then you are committing violence, actual violence. Yes, because I'm oppressed by math. Now let's just talk about the real reason that I'm here. Bulges. Yeah, you heard me. You see one in the mirror, you see one in public, and if you're a furry like me, you see one on your cosplay wolf suit. Bulges are everywhere, and they're radicalizing. They radicalize me daily. Like, if I don't see a bulge by noon, well, my hormones just start screaming at me, do something violent. And then I log on to Reddit, and Reddit whispers back, you're a hero, sweetie. Yes. You conservatives, you don't understand hormones. When you say, I'm jacked up on testosterone, you mean the gym. When I say it, I mean, I haven't slept in 3 days, and I just threw a toaster at my boyfriend because he misgendered my anime pillow. That's the power of my medical journey. I sat in the bath last night with the toaster, contemplating. I do it quite often. And yeah, as a matter of fact, I do support the Second Amendment. Surprise! I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe in the right to bear arms, but not in the way you do. For me, it's about arming myself against microaggressions. You say something mean, boom, pronoun defense system activated. Think Star Wars, but instead of lightsabers, I'm dual-wielding hormone syringes in a Hello Kitty AR-15. Growing up in a Christian conservative family was traumatic, let me tell you. They made me say grace before dinner. Grace! Do you realize how violent that is to someone who now worships Jeb Bush memes? Every time my dad read from the Bible, I heard it as a death threat against my fursona. No wonder I had to escape to Tumblr and Reddit. That's where I found my people, my tribe, my pack. Half of them are wolves. The other half identify as toaster ovens, but we're a family. And don't get me started on capitalism. Do you know how expensive fursuits are? Thousands of dollars. And insurance doesn't cover it. Oh, sure, they'll pay for my hormone shots on the government dime, but they won't cover the wolf tail that validates my true self. Disgusting. Late stage capitalism at its finest. Listen, conservatives keep saying, oh, you're mentally ill. That's offensive. I prefer the term neuromajestic. And yes, my mental health ads tell me that I have schizophrenia, BPD, and possibly a brain tumor. But you know what? That just makes me intersectional. Every diagnosis is another victim badge I can wear at Pride. So yeah, maybe I'm unstable, maybe I'm violent, but in this culture, violence is love, violence is inclusion, violence is self-care. When I log into Steam and see my clan tag flashing, I know that together we're building a better world. One furry meme, one hormone rage episode, one confiscated driver's license at a time. And let me end on this. I'm not a wolf. I'm not a lone wolf. I'm a wolf in a whole pack. And we're organizing. You can laugh now, but when the revolution comes, it'll be brought to you by Reddit mods, Delta flight attendants, and Office Depot cashiers who refuse to print your stupid memorial flyers. We're not just coming for your jobs, we're coming for your bulges! Ah! Sorry for all those technical difficulties there, guys. Were you able to hear him okay and see him okay? There's having a little tech challenges, but an actual trans furry on the show. So I hope that you guys liked it. Hope you guys enjoyed the bonus content. Thank you guys for all your financial contributions, including Drew Van Runkle, who may or may not cut off his financial support to me after my Nagasaki bomb pillow came out. Where can I find this Nagasaki bomb pillow and all of our violent pillows that we have over at the Griff shop, the Liberty shop? Where can I find them? forlibertyshop.com. That's the number 4libertyshop.com. Make sure that you guys visit there today. You can see all of the latest product drops at the very top of the page. Click the latest product drops. You can get the Atomize the Intifada tumbler, violent rhetoric, Viva El Charlie t-shirt, anything that's Charlie Kirk related. The profits go to Turning Point USA. We have 4 items related to Charlie. His Simply Freedom t-shirt. We have a Viva Freedom flag. We also have, somebody specifically requested this, Viva El Charlie t-shirt. So I actually think that's a good one. People are like, how dare you, so disrespectful. I'm like, no, if we're going to take over the left, we're going to beat them. Let's take over their symbols and make their symbols ours. We own them. A reverse Adolf Hitler swastika, if you will. Why not? It'll drive him crazy. And if you do make a purchase like that shirt or anything from the 4 items that we've produced in honor of Charlie Kirk, again, those profits go to Turning Point USA, and I've already made a donation from the sales that we've already had from those. It's a small amount, but if you guys want to contribute, you can. Otherwise, we'll see you right back again here tomorrow. Camellia Petersen on the show to tut at me, I'm sure. Click her tongue. And then I think we've got another great guest on Tuesday too. I'm just booking all these amazing guests. I hope that you guys appreciate it. I hope you like it, and I hope you'll come back again here tomorrow. I'll see you on the Discord on the Wake Up America show's For Liberty Network. Bye, guys.
Inevitably, in the wake of the assassination of Charlie Kirk, some observers looked at the problem of a radicalized young man who drove hundreds of miles to plan and carry out the murder of somebody whose political views he abhorred, and concluded that the problem is the tool used by the assassin. A few of those observers even gloat that Kirk was shot after defending the right to keep and bear arms when he discussed the trade-offs inherent in balancing the benefits and dangers of liberty. Much political discourse was already stupid, but too many people want to make it even stupider. After Kirk's assassination, amidst widespread mourning over his death as well as despicable celebrations of the conservative activist's murder, came a spate of malicious chuckling over the nature of the crime. Charlie Kirk, you see, was shot with a rifle, and he'd once called shooting deaths the price of keeping the Second Amendment. How ironic. Except that's really not what Kirk said. I had a lot of disagreements with Kirk, but this wasn't one. His comment about the Second Amendment and deaths was part of a larger discussion about the dangers inherent in liberty. He emphasized that you can't have the good parts of being free without also suffering the negative consequences. Asked at an April 5th, 2023 Turning Point USA event about the Second Amendment, Kirk answered, "The Second Amendment is not about hunting. I love hunting. The Second Amendment is not even about personal defense. That is important. The Second Amendment is there, God forbid, so that you can defend yourself against a tyrannical government. Now, we must also be real. We must be honest with the population. Having an armed citizenry comes with a price, and that is part of liberty. Driving comes with a price. 50,000 people die on the road every year. That's a price. You get rid of driving, you'd have 50,000 less auto fatalities. But we have decided that the benefit of driving, speed, accessibility, mobility, having products, services, is worth the cost of 50,000 people dying on the road. You will never live in a society when you have an armed citizenry and you won't have a single gun death. That is nonsense. It's drivel. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal, he added. Kirk might also have mentioned that free speech is also dangerous. Unfettered speech is important to the function of a free and open society, but protecting speech risks the popularization of vicious, totalitarian ideas like those of Karl Marx and Adolf Hitler. It runs the danger of the radicalization of lost souls who encounter bad ideas, embrace them, engrave "Hey Fascist, Catch" lyrics from the anti-fascist song Bella Ciao and gaming memes on rifle cartridges, and then murder their political opponents. Undoubtedly, the same people would have found that equally ironic. And Kirk's larger point is true across the board. Any freedom that allows us to live to our fullest, any restriction on state intervention into our lives, can be abused by the worst among us. Evil people are shielded by Fourth Amendment protections against unreasonable search and seizure, as are good people. We give up such protections at our peril in hopes of rooting out evil. What peril? Kirk touched on this in his 2023 talk when he said, "The Second Amendment is there, God forbid, so that you can defend yourself against a tyrannical government," and noted that governments tend to get tyrannical. Yes, freedom can be abused by bad people, but if we can't trust everybody to use freedom wisely, why would we trust people in government to wisely administer a more restrictive regime by which they get to disarm the public, censor speech, invade homes at will, and more? Those who seek coercive power over others by working in government are at least as prone to abuse their position as is anybody else. There are trade-offs not just in liberty, but in restricting liberty. Given that we have a natural right to be free, and that Kirk was correct to say that all governments tend towards tyranny, we're better off trusting in more freedom rather than less. That's a recognition that there are no risk-free options. The call for gun control gets even dumber. But the focus on Kirk's death by gunshot gets even stupider. The conservative activist was reportedly killed with a single round from a Mauser Model 98 30-06 caliber bolt-action rifle. The Mauser 98 was originally designed in the 19th century for military use, but has long since been largely supplanted in that role by semi-automatic and then select-fire weapons, most using less powerful cartridges. Yes, the most common cartridges used in AR and AK-type weapons are generally less powerful than other cartridges used for hunting. But the old design remains ideal for hunting large game animals. It is accurate if properly zeroed, has a longer effective range than many modern military weapons, and cartridges such as the 30-06 are likely to cleanly drop an animal with a single shot. That's why many of the old rifles were adapted, sometimes with modifications, for hunting. Modern bolt-action hunting rifles used for stalking deer, boar, elk, and the like are variations on designs that go back to the Mauser 98 and similar rifles. That is, the hunting rifle allegedly used by Tyler Robinson to murder Charlie Kirk is an example of the only type of firearm gun control advocates say they don't want to ban or restrict. No major law advocated in recent years, such as magazine capacity limits or bans on semi-automatic weapons, would have affected it. Blame culture? Some observers are upset that the left, the radical fringe of it anyway, is blamed for Kirk's murder when Tyler Robinon's family is conservative, Mormon, culturally traditional, and comfortable with firearms. But the Robinson family didn't shoot Charlie Kirk. Tyler Robinson committed this crime after he adopted views very different from those of his family, embraced the use of violence against political foes, and inscribed anti-fascist slogans on his ammunition before taking a fatal shot. If we're going to delve into culture wars, we could mention the unfortunate use of speech in the social media cesspool. That's where Robinson was seemingly radicalized, where people celebrated Kirk's death, and where a few even called for more targets. But that's part of the trade-offs of liberty. If we're all to be free, and we should be, some will use freedom in repulsive ways. We should punish those who push action to criminal extremes. But all liberty can be misused. And not only are the risks of liberty worth the dangers, They're also far less perilous than granting governments enhanced powers that they'll inevitably abuse.